Stout. Incomplete at about the 32-yard line, looking for Calvin Sweeney. Now, we talked to him yesterday at the practice, and we asked, do you have a hero, an idol maybe in the National Football League, somebody that you always looked up to? And he said, well, one of them was Paul Warfield. Of course, the Browns just down the turnpike in Cleveland.
Yes, of course. And Calvin Sweeney said he admired the way Paul Warfield would gracefully go up and catch the ball. He also had another hero in Otto Stowe. Very few people know him, a fine receiver for the Miami Dolphins.
Asked Calvin what his strength is as a wide receiver. He said he comes back to the ball, tries to help the quarterback out. Slot to the left side for Stout, 2nd and 10. Franco gets a block, tries to turn the corner, slithers out at about the 46-yard line, picks up 4, brings up 3rd and 6. Freddie McNeil, the veteran out of UCLA, chased him out of bounds. How about the Bears in Tampa Bay in that deluge down in Tampa Bay? Here again is Brent Musburger.
Jim, it's the Bears again, and this time in the monsoon, it is Walter Payton. And with this run, he surpasses 1,000 yards on the season. Bears lead it by 14-0. Back to Jim.
Walter Payton, 9 years in the National Football League, had 2,565 yards and was in 4th place behind Jim Brown, behind Franco Harris, behind O.J. Simpson, and then number 34, Walter Payton. Bears up big over the Bucs. It'll be a long afternoon for John McKay down in Tampa Bay. It's been a long season. 3rd and 6. Abercrombie cuts it back, had blocking to the outside, Doc, cut it back inside, fumbled the football, but I believe after the whistle had blown.
He obviously felt he couldn't get outside, that the pursuit was too great. Tried to cut back against the grain, coughed up the ball, but I believe you're right, Jim. Pittsburgh.
Interesting play call on 3rd and 6. You run the power sweep to the left side.
And we have a Pittsburgh Steeler down on the field. It's Walter Abercrombie. Walter Abercrombie is down on the field. He's hurt.
Well, in that NFC East, St. Louis Cardinals with a record of 4-6-1. Neil O'Donoghue has added another field goal, and the Cardinals now up over the Chargers. Boy, the Chargers up and down depending on what week. They upset the Cowboys a week ago, and of course on Thanksgiving Day we've got a football feast, Doc. It all starts with the NFL today. Hey, Roy Green for the Cardinals last week, 4 touchdown passes in the first half.
I was just going to say, St. Louis can strike through the air. Neil Lomax, 4 touchdown passes, all to Roy Green last week. They're ahead again this week, and I think that's the way San Diego beat Dallas last week. Eddie Luther had 340 yards passing, so Thanksgiving Day should be a good one.
Cowboys, of course, right now are 9-2 in that NFC East, tied with the Washington Redskins. They're also at 9-2. And the Cowboys, I think, might have their hands full with Kansas City down in Dallas this afternoon. Bill Kenny and the Chiefs. John Malkovich has done quite a job with Kansas City, and they've got a pretty good air game. You're looking at Walter Abercrombie, number 34, 2nd year out of Baylor. And, of course, he would be a big loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Around the NFL today, the Green Bay Packers up by 7. Keep in mind the Packers tied with the Vikings at 6-5 for the top spot in the NFC Central. And the Lions, if they can win that game, well, they've got designs on the division title as well.
Sure, if the Lions win that game and Minnesota should lose here, we'd have a 3-way tie in the NFC Central. Walter Abercrombie walking off the field.
And the Steelers will punt it away. Craig Colquitt is back deep. Vikings have 3 back deep on the punt return. Rufus Bess, along with Ricky Bell and Joey Brown. Colquitt's last punt went out of bounds at the 4-yard line. Goes to the near sideline again, only this time he shanks it off the side of the foot, and the Vikings get a break. Browner comes out to help the official with the spot. Official didn't need the help. It's at the 35-yard line. 1st and 10 for the Minnesota Vikings, who've dodged a couple of bullets here. They've been playing defense backed up in their own half of the field, but the Steelers unable to punch it in.
Colquitt was going for the corner, but he obviously had in his mind that they had 3 men back there, and he had to be precise. Here, it just goes off the side of the field. He's disgusted. We have a tie game here. Minnesota, Pittsburgh tied at 7. We'll be back in a moment.
Giving that extra effort makes winners. Be All You Can Be, sponsored by the U.S. Army. During his career, Rocky Bleier starred in 4 Pittsburgh Super Bowl triumphs, but the road to glory was long. The Steelers drafted Bleier in the 16th round, but before he donned his cleats, Bleier was shipped overseas, fought in the combat unit, and was twice decorated for distinguished service. Discipline and hard work, being the best he could be, earned Bleier his spot on the Steelers, the respect of his peers, and stardom.
Bleier, great catch, touchdown!
Blue GC8, this is Army 212, 7 miles northwest, low fuel, heavy weather.
Army 212, radar contact, turn right, heading 150.
With a fog-bound helicopter hanging on your every word, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, only that you're good.
Slowly.
Roger.
Overlanding threshold.
Be all that you can be.
Thanks for your help.
Roger.
You can do it in the Army.
Boy, you talk about the grand old man of the National Football League. There is some gentleman, Art Rooney. You talk about family. He has a huge family, and of course most of his sons are involved in the Steeler operation, but the team is his family as well. Handoff inside, goes to Ricky Young, slithers forward to about the 35-yard line. And you can relate to that family atmosphere, Doc, because you played here in Pittsburgh.
Exactly, and there's no owner like Mr. Rooney. I mean, the kind of a guy who, when you're on the plane coming back from a game, will take the time to sit down next to you and to ask you how your family is, how you're feeling. He's a real human being and the finest sportsman in this country, Mr. Art Rooney.
Well, it's so interesting to watch the Steelers come out of the tunnel for practice. Mr. Rooney is there to shake hands and greet them and ask them about their family. And it's a father-son relationship. It just continues on. He even comes up to the booth at halftime and asks Doc if we're okay. Roll out by Steve Dills. Comes back the other way. Casper's got it. Got 2 blockers in front of him. Close to first down yardage. Dave Casper wearing number 44. Mel Blount, 14-year veteran out of Southern. Robin Cole racked him down.
Of course, Dave Casper, gotten from Houston along with Archie Manning about 8 weeks ago. 9 receptions coming in for 121 yards at 10 years out of Notre Dame. Dave Casper. First down, Minnesota Vikings.
Tied at 7. We've got 7 minutes and 50 seconds. 7:50 left to go in this second quarter. Tony Galbraith again. Sandwiched down again. Steeler defensive front now starting to assume control. You can see the defensive rankings and the job facing the Minnesota Vikings. Pittsburgh comes in second in the National Football League in total defense, 4th against the rush, 2nd against the pass. And if you want to go down the defensive stats of the Steelers, it reads like a Pittsburgh phone book. 2nd and 9. Dills digs in for Minnesota. His knee did not go down. Dills now does at the 43. Keith Gary and Keith Willis. Willis with the pressure, Gary with the tackle. We talked about the Steeler defense. They lead the National Football League in fewest points allowed. They lead the NFL in fewest first downs allowed. They lead the NFL in interceptions with 23. They're 2nd in total defense, 2nd in passing yards, 2nd in touchdowns allowed, and it just goes on and on, Doc.
On and on. And Keith Willis, there you see the record. Set Steelers quarterback sack record with 13. He's tied for 2nd in the NFL with Mark Gastineau behind Doug Betters from Miami.
3rd and 8 for Dills. From the 44 of the Vikings, we're tied 7-all. Pittsburgh shows blitz, and they're coming. Vikings read it well. McCullum got it. First down. Great catch by Sam McCullum over Mel Blount. It was McCullum who beat Blount on the touchdown pass, and Dills read that blitz perfectly.
And a nice touch by Steve Dills. He throws it up in a way where you have to throw it. I thought Mel Blount might have fallen asleep for a slight second. He was running with McCullum, who doesn't have the speed he used to have. The ball is perfectly thrown over the top, over the outside. McCullum keeps his feet in bounds. First down, big play, Minnesota Vikings.
Credit that offensive front 5 of the Vikings. Steve Riley, Jimmy Huff, Dennis Swilley, Wes Hamilton, and Tim Irvin. They did some job picking up the blitz of the Steelers. McCullum is carving out a career here this afternoon against Mel Blount. From the 28, 1st and 10 for the Minnesota Vikings, and Minnesota takes their 2nd time out of the first half. We've got 6:25 to go, and we are knotted up 7-all. Hey, the Cardinals have caught fire against the Chargers. Neil Lomax, his 2nd touchdown pass of the day. This one a 10-yarder to Doug Marsh. St. Louis leads San Diego 24-0.
Whew, that's a surprise. Neil Lomax is hot. 4 touchdowns last week, a couple today. Beware Dallas Cowboys, Everson Walls and company on Thanksgiving Day.
And coming up the day after Thanksgiving as our football feast continues, we've got Alabama and Boston College. Ray Perkins in his first year down there as head coach of the Crimson Tide. Boston College, they've got a great quarterback in Doug Flutie.
Doug Flutie, he's got it's magic up there in Boston with the Eddie LeBaron lookalike Flutie. And of course, there's a big one next Saturday, Nebraska. Best team in the country takes on Oklahoma, Arizona versus Arizona State, Vanderbilt versus Tennessee.
And of course, Brent Musburger, Ara Parsegian, and Pat O'Brien in the NCAA today. I'm not sure that Nebraska couldn't beat a couple of teams in the NFL. I saw what they did to Penn State, and they've just been running up humongous numbers. Tom Osborne's best team ever. Dills, bootleg, wide open. Brewer, the tight end. Inside the 10 in the pursuit was Donnie Shell. Big play time for the Vikings.
The reason it worked because Steve Dills has been running some misdirection plays, some traps. It's been working with Galbraith. That time he faked misdirection. He took his time. Take a look again right here. See the misdirection right there with Galbraith? He fakes it. The line goes that way. He sets up, takes his time. Brewer slides across the middle against the direction. Makes the catch. Here he tries to put a fake on Donnie Shell. Forget it. Goes down, doesn't get any extra yards.
First and goal, Vikings. Quick count by Dills. Excellent pursuit by the Steelers. Ricky Young trapped down from behind. You know, we talked about it at the top of the telecast, John. Gone the steel curtain defense of Pittsburgh. The L.C. Greenwoods, the mean Joe Greens, replaced by a much quicker and more agile front four.
Speed is the difference in this defensive team. Also a feeling of camaraderie. Watch it again. Watch the pursuit of this defense. Great speed. Robin Cole fighting off some blocks. Young trying to get outside. Can't do it. Everyone on him. Merriweather, number 57 from the backside.
Pitch back to Galbraith again. This time he gets back to the original line of scrimmage. Robin Cole in his 7th year out of New Mexico chops him down. 3rd and goal for the Minnesota Vikings.
With the speed of the Pittsburgh defense, I don't see how you're going to run the ball in. You have to play action pass or throw it into the end zone. Take your shot for a touchdown.
Vikings on the verge of taking the lead. If they can punch it in for a touchdown, of course, they would settle for a field goal here because they played really most of the second quarter backed up deep in their own territory and dodged a couple of Pittsburgh bullets. Steelers go with 5 defensive backs. They're in their nickel defense, anticipating pass. Casper wide to the right side. Leo Lewis and McCullum motion top of the screen now. That is Mike Jones, the rookie. Dills unloads. Galbraith has it. Down at the 5 as helmets collide right there. And we'll see Benny Ricardo.
Donnie Shell put a hit on him that you wouldn't believe. You saw him just stop cold. Otherwise, he might have had some momentum to get close to the goal line. Shell put the big hit on him, all-pro safety in his 10th year.
Out of the hold of Steve Dills, Benny Ricardo, he's been perfect between the 20 and the 29. Dills will spot it down at about the 13-yard line, so a 23-yard try for Benny Ricardo, who's 19 of 23 in the field goal department. Bad snap. Dills pulled it down, and it was no good. So the bad snap creating some problems on the specialty teams, and the Steelers have dodged a bullet.
And Bud Grant, the Minnesota Vikings can't afford things like that. They were gaining some momentum, a good drive. You mentioned it before. They overcame bad field position. That time a bad snap. They missed a field goal. Pittsburgh gets the ball back on their 20.
What in the world is going on with the Cardinals? 31-0. Lomax runs it in from 1 yard out. 31-0. Cardinals on top over the Chargers. The Colts, they are trailing Miami 17-0. First and 10, Steelers from their own 20. Inside handoff is Frank Pollard. Pollard, of course, replacing having had his bell rung Walter Abercrombie, and Dennis Johnson stacks him up. The Baltimore Colts and the Dolphins down in the Orange Bowl, tough place to play. Miami has 2 touchdowns and a field goal and a 17-0 lead. Of course, Miami 7-4, tied with Buffalo 7-4 for the top spot in the AFC East. And how about the Patriots? Just a game behind at 6-5. 20-0. The Cleveland Browns on top up in Foxborough. All the scores and highlights And a look at the division races with Brent and Irv at halftime. Is it too early for Brent to explain the tiebreakers?
Right.
Stout to Franco, who manages to hang on. The ball was thrown down around his knees back at the 20-yard line, and that was the original line of scrimmage. So the Steelers now look at 3rd and 10.
And you get a sense that the Minnesota Vikings defense is picking up the intensity level. They felt that they had to, and Charlie Johnson and company told me this, Studwell, that they had to get the ball back to give their offense more opportunities. Here, Stout back, Franco's coming out, makes a good catch, and then he's hit right there.
You know, John, except for the one long incompletion to Calvin Sweeney, they have stayed mostly with the swing passes on the sidelines. They've got to throw deep and open up again. Incomplete, almost intercepted up near the 30, looking for Benny Cunningham, the tight end. He would have been very close to first down yardage had he crossed the 30 with the football, but Willie Teal knocked it loose, and the Vikings defense done their job.
Stout said he would like to open it up more than he has been over this season, but he said, you know what? There's a man on the sidelines. Although I call most of the plays, if it doesn't work, I'm going to have to face Chuck Noll when I head to the sidelines.
Rufus Bess back deep. He awaits at about the 40-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings. Craig Colquitt in his 5th year out of Tennessee. Rufus Bess unexplicably will watch it hit and take a tremendous bounce. That's going to cost him 25 yards. Why he didn't come up and signal for the fair catch. It rolls dead at the 23. So another break in the specialty teams for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Robin Sedline almost got through to block that. Why the fair catch wasn't made, I don't know. He might have thought it was too dangerous, but it did cost the Minnesota Vikings good field position.
Well, the last time he let it rolled out of bounds at the 4-yard line. This time it cost him about 23 yards. So it's 1st and 10 for the Vikings as we approach the 2-minute warning. Cincinnati hammering Houston 31-3. We talked about the Browns and what they were doing to New England. The Patriots in danger of falling 6-6. Miami, of course, they're looking to go 8-4. They're tied with Buffalo right now. And again, Brent Irv will have all the scores and highlights at halftime. Dills, draw play, goes to Tony Galbraith. He breaks it down to about the 27-yard line before Gary Dunn, in his 7th year out of Miami of Florida, wrestled him down. So we're at the 2-minute warning. The Pittsburgh Steelers took their first possession. Cliff Stout, a 3-yard scoring strike to Benny Cunningham, 7-0, but then the Vikings answered that. Steve Dills, 30 yards to Sam McCullum, and we are still tied 7-all.
Museums are special places. They're really storehouses for all the knowledge man has collected. But they don't tell us much about what we haven't learned. Some children have an eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa. Thousands of other people have RP and don't even know it. Night blindness and tunnel vision are often the symptoms. Total loss of sight is often the result. There's no known cure for RP, but there is hope. Thanks to RP Foundation Fighting Blindness, researchers are looking for answers to the cause, prevention, and treatment of RP, and self-help groups and referral services are operating around the country, all supported by RP Foundation Fighting Blindness. Hopefully, someday children won't have to fit a lifetime of seeing into a few short years. For more information, call RP Foundation Fighting Blindness at 800-638-5682. They're working toward the day RP won't leave anyone in the dark.
The preceding announcement brought to you by the National Football League. Jim Kelly and John Dockery, welcome back to Pittsburgh's Three Rivers Stadium. 7-all, the Steelers and the Vikings. You see the time left. Vikings with 1 timeout remaining. It says on the scoreboard. I thought they used 2. Dills, Galbraith, first down, Minnesota up near the 35-yard line. Taves in his 11th year out of California in pursuit, but anytime you get that back one-on-one with a linebacker, unless the linebacker happens to be Jack Lambert, in pretty good shape.
And there's Jack Lambert. There's the man. Take a look at it again. A very safe, high-percentage play. Dills rolls out. Galbraith comes out of the backfield. We'll take a look
as
live.
you were about to describe. Interesting play call on 1st and 10 from the 34. You go to the hurry-up offense. Jack Lambert in pursuit. You saw that tight shot of Jack Lambert. You see the way he had his forearms taped up? We talked to him in the Steeler locker room yesterday. He said he still enjoys the physical part of football. It's still fun. Look at a couple of billy clubs out there with all that tape and padding.
And you asked Jack Lambert, is it difficult to get motivated to play after this many years? He said, no. As long as we're winning, I still love to do it. And you see that big smile. He's a man of few words, but when he speaks, people listen.
Well, we talked about, that's exactly right. That's what Cliff Stout says. He said Jack Lambert is exactly like E.F. Hutton here in Pittsburgh. In fact, when the Pittsburgh fans were booing Stout after the Tampa Bay game, Lambert came out in the Pittsburgh papers and blasted the fans. The next game, Cliff Stout came trotting out, got a standing ovation. So he is indeed like E.F. Hutton.
Well, he's a throwback to those old Pittsburgh Steelers defenses, the Joe Greens, the L.C. Greenwoods. Lambert, one of the few remaining members. Of course, Donnie Shell and Mel Blount are still there.
St. Louis has scored again. 37-0. The Cardinals on top over the Chargers. And don't forget, on Thanksgiving Day, we've got the Cardinals and the Cowboys from Texas Stadium, 3:30 Eastern time. And it all starts with the NFL today with Brent, Irv, Jimmy the Greek, Phyllis, Charlesy. Anybody else? Dills incomplete to a wide open Steve Jordan. Second year out of Brown. That looks like a replay of their game last week. It wasn't Dill's fault that they fell behind 19-0. He had so many passes dropped, and Bud Grant said it was not Steve Dill's fault.
It wasn't Steve Dill. He actually had a pretty good game. One of the big problems the Minnesota Vikings have had this year is the loss of Joe Sensor. Of course, having so many great years, Sensor was a big part of their offense. He's no longer here. That causes problems.
Better be careful. Joe Sensor's got a radio show up in Minnesota. 3rd and 6. Dills almost intercepted at the 42-yard line. Had the ball been thrown up toward the receiver, Donnie Shell would have had his 5th interception of the season.
Incredible pressure by the two young designated pass rushers from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 93, Keith Willis. Number 92, Keith Gary, coming from opposite sides, getting to Dills just as he threw that ball.
So with 1:13 left to go, the Vikings now will punt it away. Scansey is back deep. Coleman to do the punting, and the Steelers will have a chance to get on the board. High, beautiful kick by Coleman. Back Scansey up to the 13. Breaks the tackle. Looks for the wall. That is a great defensive play. Because number 39 for the Minnesota Vikings, Carl Lee, was the first man down there. Scansey got away from him. Lee didn't stay down on the ground. He got back up with intensity and chased the play down from behind. Also, a penalty flag is down, and the Steelers are walking back toward the tunnel and toward their own end zone. While we're watching Jim Tunney, you know, you talk about that 37-0 Cardinal game against the Chargers and the fact we've got St. Louis coming up against Dallas on Thanksgiving. Neil Lomax has accounted for 4 of the Cardinal touchdowns, 2 by running and 2 by passing. So
during the run back, number 31. Half the distance of the goal line, first down.
Brent's highlight reel at halftime may consist of the Neil Lomax show. 59 ticks left on the clock. Steelers have 2 timeouts left, and I was right. The Vikings have just 1. Be careful time, of course, for the Steelers here. I would expect Chuck Noll to keep it very conservative, and Frank Pollard will keep it inside the 13. Fumbles the football, and the Vikings say they've got it. Doug Martin, number 79, the man that fell on the football. Just as we say, it's be careful time, and Chuck Noll wants to play conservative. The Vikings defense comes up with a big play.
Take a look at number 30, Frank Pollard. Finds a hole, turns upfield, is hit by a couple of balls, just pops out. Vikings come up with it right there. Big break for the Minnesota Vikings. Is still bouncing around. Number 79, Doug Martin, comes in to make the recovery and give the Vikings great field position right before the half change.
Randy Holloway, 75, 6th year out of Pittsburgh, the man that caused that fumble. Keep in mind now, the Vikings only have 1 timeout. They've got 51 seconds, and they've got it at the 13-yard line of the Pittsburgh Steelers. McCullum, he has the touchdown catch at 30 yards, wide to the left side. Dills sets the Vikings down. Motion by Ricky Young, near side. Dills up top. Fires left corner of the end zone. McCullum out of bounds.
Very strange looking play. It looked like Woods let McCullum go. For some reason, Mel Blount was playing the short zone. Had that ball been thrown a little sooner, on a little more of a line, it was a definite touchdown. Take another look from the end zone. Dills back to pass, gets pretty good protection, throws the ball a little too high, a little too far. McCullum can't come down inbounds, but you see him behind Mel Blount. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, no touchdown.
Obviously, Bud Grant and the Minnesota coaches going to work on Mel Blount. It's been very successful. 45 seconds. Play action, look out, all alone. Tony Galbraith inside the 10, down to about the 6. Dills just got rid of the ball because barreling in there, Edmund Nelson, second year out of Auburn. 6'3", 270. I don't think he had to see him. He could feel him breathing.
Exactly. That was action, and that was act and react. I mean, that was instant. Dills just got the ball off in time, saved a loss. Now it's 3rd and about 4.
19 seconds left. Time running down, and now the Vikings, well, the Steelers take a timeout.
You have to wonder about that goal. Why in the world would the Pittsburgh Steelers take a timeout unless they were confused on defense and wanted to talk it over?
Steve Dills goes over and will confer with Bud Grant. Bud, of course, in his 17th season with the Minnesota Vikings, 3rd among active NFL coaches in victories with 159. What a record he's put together, too, in Minnesota. 12 times in those 17 seasons in the playoffs, 3 NFC Central Division championships, 1 NFL championship. He's had the Vikings in the Super Bowl 4 times.
And, Jim, the situation is this. It's 3rd down and 7. Steve Dills, when he comes back onto the field, will face the all-out pass rush from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Willis will be in there. Gary will be in there. They'll play man-to-man, double the outside receivers. Steve Dills' best chance here is to roll out, maybe find one of his backs out of the backfield or his tight end.
Next week, doubleheader Sunday here on CBS Sports. John and I will be at the Superdome in New Orleans. The Saints and the Vikings. RFK Stadium in Washington plays host to the Eagles. And San Francisco travels to Chicago. Then, on our doubleheader Sunday, Green Bay at Atlanta or the Giants and the Raiders. Check your local listings. It all starts with the NFL Today and Brent Musburger. 15 seconds left to go. The Vikings have 1 timeout. They look now at 3rd and 4. Dills. Incomplete. Intercepted. Mel Blount atones for the earlier touchdown toss to Sam McCullum.
Great play by Mel Blount. They just try to run the slant in, the quick slant in on Mel Blount. As I said, it was man-to-man defense, and you see he leads the Steelers in career interceptions. Take a look again. The right side of your screen, Mel Blount. Not only does he break it up, but he makes a great interception and takes away the field goal right there. See Mel leaning in here with his right hand, pulls it in for the interception.
That's his 56th career interception. It ties him with Pat Fisher and Lem Barney, the all-time list. Well, the last time the Steelers had the football, we said they'd be conservative. Pollard coughed it up, but the Steelers have dodged another bullet. 11 seconds left to go in this first half. It has been a scoreless second quarter. Franco will hang on to the football, and barring a penalty, that will be the final play of the first half in the grasp of Freddie McNeil. Well, 30 minutes here in sold-out Three Rivers Stadium ends with a 7-7 deadlock between two teams that are deadlocked atop their respective Central Division. The Pittsburgh Steelers, with a record of 9-2 atop the AFC Central, a 3-game lead over the Cleveland Browns, and the Minnesota Vikings, 6-5, tied with the Green Bay Packers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, on their first possession, punched it on in. Stout, his 9th scoring strike of the season, 3 yards to Benny Cunningham. And the point after by Anderson, 7-0 Pittsburgh. But the Vikings came right back on a scoring drive of their own. They went 79 yards in 11 plays. And that was something Bud Grant was concerned about, whether or not the Vikings could indeed go 80 yards if they had to score against the Pittsburgh defense. Dills, a 30-yard scoring strike to Sam McCullum. We were tied 7-all in the first quarter, and that's the way the first half wound up after the 56th career interception by Mel Blount, as the Steelers were able to keep the Vikings off the scoreboard twice. So, Halftime coming up with Brennan Irv back in New York. We've got a 7-7 tie here at Three Rivers. That's the end of the first half. Brent's next.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Pontiac. Cars that tell the world you're not just along for the ride. Pontiac, we build excitement. The Travelers for insurance and financial services. And by your independent professional traveler's agent or broker. And by General Motors. We're living up to the General Motors mark of excellence.
(11:05 p.m., the Hospital for Special Surgery, New York. And where are the surgeons? Watching television. Not just any television, a Sony with the remarkable Trinitron system for a picture that's critically focused, critically lifelike. Maybe that's why Sony won an Emmy for its picture, something no other TV could have done. Not if their life depended on it.
Tea and burgers go nice. Tea and tacos go nice. Chicken goes nice. Salads go nice with tea on ice.
Pure and natural Riunite is the world's best loved imported wine. And now there's new Riunite Doro. It's delicious.
Everything's nice with tea on ice. Riunite.
Don't grow up too fast, big guy. When you grow up, you won't have people to protect you and take care of you 24 hours a day. And that's why smart grown-ups buy Nationwide Insurance. Because Nationwide has the flexibility to provide many kinds of insurance plans for many kinds of grown-ups. Nationwide Insurance. It's blanket protection 24 hours a day.
Nationwide is on your side.
Spend your Thanksgiving holidays with CBS Sports. We'll have a full menu of great games, starting with the NFL on Thanksgiving Day. The St. Louis Cardinals take on the Dallas Cowboys. Friday, college football takes center stage as Alabama meets Boston College. Saturday, our coverage of college basketball tips off with Kansas against Houston, followed by a college football classic, Nebraska and Oklahoma. And on Sunday, an NFL doubleheader. All here Thanksgiving Day through the weekend on CBS Sports.
Welcome back to New York. I'm Brent Musburger with Irv Cross. And, of course, those of you in Pittsburgh are vitally interested in the future of quarterback Terry Bradshaw, who revealed on the NFL today that he's not coming back this year. Irv, were you surprised by that?
I was surprised. I thought he might have a chance to come back. I knew he was throwing the ball in practice. Even though he wasn't throwing it deep, he was throwing it on a regular basis, but he's out.
Minnesota playing a tough game today, and, of course, they've got to win because the Packers are in control of Detroit right now. But let's take you to the scoreboard and get you up to date with everything that's going on at the moment. You can see that Jimmy the Greek's New York Giants are in control of Irv Cross's Philadelphia Eagles. So, Irv, take us to the highlights and get us up to date.
It really hurts. The Liberty Bell is trying to find something to cheer in the first half. Really didn't see much. Watch this. Ron Jaworski going back to pass. Lawrence Taylor eats him up with a sack. Jaworski trying to get his offense going, elects to go to the air, but this pass is picked off by Mark Haynes, who scrambles along the left sideline for the Giants, setting up a scoring opportunity for his club. And, of course, Parcells has to be happy with that, Brent, because his team has really struggled all year long. Butch Woolfolk, the speedster out of Michigan, takes this handoff over his right end and scrambles 11 yards for a touchdown. The story all day has again been Giant defense. Joe Pisarcik comes in replacing Jaworski because he had a bad first half. Same thing happens. Harry Carson sacks him.
I can't remember Dick Vermeil taking Jaws out.
No, he would never take him out. But Marion Campbell represents a new regime.
All right. Irv, we got a lot of schizophrenic football teams around the league. I mean, the Green Bay Packers, you can't figure them out. You can't figure the St. Louis Cardinals out. Look at what they're doing to San Diego. 37-7. No, Roy Green has not caught any touchdown passes for the Cardinals, but Lomax has thrown to and run in twice himself. They're in control there. Cincinnati just feasts on Houston. It is 38-3. Quarterback Kenny Anderson having his finest day of the season so far. 3 touchdown passes, 2 to tight end Dan Ross, and 1 a 45-yarder to Chris Collinsworth. And, of course, Chicago and Tampa Bay. They are playing in a monsoon down in Tampa right now, and the Bears lead it. You probably saw our update. Walter Payton has scored and passed 1,000 yards again in rushing for the year. Miami is all over Baltimore. 24-0 at the half. Dan Marino, who did not throw a touchdown pass, at least according to the officials last week, he tossed an 85-yarder to young Mark Duper, and the Dolphins now are dominating the Colts down in Miami. Cleveland doing a good defensive job on the Patriots and Steve Grogan, who limped to the sidelines. He was injured. Chip Banks has intercepted a pass and taken it in for a Cleveland touchdown already in that game. The Raiders leading Buffalo 10-3. The story there is quarterback Joe Ferguson. He suffered a concussion. He left the field in the first half. It is doubtful he will play for the Bills after the intermission. Green Bay and Detroit, many of you are watching this game, and you know that the Packers are in control. And, of course, if Minnesota should lose, they'd get a game up. This was a key turning point early. Detroit couldn't get the punt off, Irv. Now watch the ball on the sideline. I swear the man who rolled out of bounds with that ball had it with him, so he wouldn't have had control, and Detroit should have had it back. Well, what do I know about officiating? This is a great catch by John Jefferson. Up high from Lynn Dickey. He's got superb concentration, doesn't he, Irv?
Great. You know, the ruling on that play was that the man did step out of the bounds on the 18-yard line, but Green Bay retained possession. Wasn't Detroit's fault.
Oh, I'll tell you, that was some call. All right, Minnesota and the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they are tied at 7. They are at the half. And, Irv, I want you to tell us about Warren Moon, that young Canadian quarterback. We'll have that story when we continue on CBS after these messages from your local stations.
This is CBS.
As you know, last spring's NFL draft was a vintage year for quarterbacks. No less than 6 were drafted in the first round. This year's crop does not shape up to be quite as good. We've got 3 who could go on the first round: Steve Young of BYU, Boomer Esiason of Maryland, Jeff Hostetler of West Virginia. So a few NFL teams are licking their chops over a hot quarterback prospect who has plenty of pro experience in another country. After 5 years of playing to the music of old Canada, he may soon be marching home to the tune of Stars and Stripes Forever.
Warren Moon has been living the All-American dream. First, he led his college team, the Washington Huskies, to a Rose Bowl victory. Then it was on to the pros, where he helped take his team to 5 championships in his first 5 seasons. Never heard of him? There's a reason. He's been north of the border.
I figured Canada was best suited for my style. As a rookie in the National Football League, you usually have to sit around for 3 or 4 years before you get an opportunity to play unless someone gets hurt.
Moon's Eskimo contract has expired, and because no NFL team drafted him out of college, he is free to sign with any team or league he desires. The Eskimos are hoping the fact that he owns a profitable business in town will help convince him to stay.
Naturally, we're interested in keeping him. We're going to do everything we can to do that.
If the right opportunity came about for me in the National Football League, I would certainly jump at it.
With its wide-open offenses, success came easily to Moon in the CFL. But that doesn't guarantee the transition to the NFL will be easy, as a famous former CFL player points out.
You cannot just take and bring your physical talents down to the National Football League and hope to do well. I know how great a player Warren Moon is, but the National Football League is a whole different world, and you have to really be in it to appreciate that.
The Moons don't live year-round in Edmonton. Seattle is their off-season home, and that's where they're packing to go this past week. Moon wants to play and live in the same town, so you'd think the Seahawks would have a leg up on signing him. But the emergence of Dave Krieg as quarterback has dampened Moon's enthusiasm.
I'd really have to look at the way he played the rest of the year, and Seattle would have to look at the way he played the rest of the year to even see if they need a quarterback.
A lot of teams desperately need a quarterback. The Giants, Houston, and Tampa are involved in the Moon Stakes.
And we're doing the best we can to evaluate him as far as our team is concerned. I think he's a fine athlete, a fine player, a fine person. How good a quarterback he'll be, we're back into that crystal ball stuff. I don't really know.
Wherever he decides to sign, his family will be well off. But don't think that the team that offers the most money will be the one he automatically signs with.
What if someone offered me $800,000 a year and it was in Seattle, as opposed to $1 million a year and being in Cleveland? I'd go to Seattle. I mean, there's different circumstances for everything.
Irv, I guess he wouldn't be the first to come out of Canada and go to the NFL.
Now, take you back a few years. Sam Etcheverry came down and played for the Cardinals because Joe Kapp took the Vikings to the Super Bowl, and Joe Theismann won it all.
But we should report that Moon did not play well his last few games up there, Irv, so some of the teams apparently have cooled on him, including the New York Giants. I'm sure in the weeks ahead, Jimmy the Greek will have more on that story. And now let's send you back to the stadium and the game you're enjoying on CBS.
Welcome back to Pittsburgh's Three Rivers Stadium, a sold-out Three Rivers Stadium, the 93rd consecutive sellout. The Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings all deadlocked at 7-all. Well, again, everybody, I'm Jim Kelly, John Dockery alongside. Kind of a surprising game as far as the Vikings are concerned. They did one thing that Bud Grant was very concerned about, the ability to go 80 yards and score in a touchdown drive.
And they did score. Here we see the first score by the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is Stout. He finds Benny Cunningham coming across underneath the zone. Touchdown. Pittsburgh went ahead 7-0. But as you said, Jim, Steve Dills and the Minnesota Vikings had that long drive, a continuous drive, before Dills finally found Sam McCullum cutting across the left side, beating Mel Blount for a touchdown. Minnesota right back in the game, score tied 7-7.
You know, in talking to the Vikings around the hotel, they to a man thought that their backs were up against it, as you pointed out, John. But they also thought they had a great opportunity to come in here to Three Rivers Stadium, where the Steelers are so ever awesome, and upset the Steelers because they were flat. And maybe that's been the case.
It's possibly the case. It's 7-7 here in Pittsburgh.
Test pilot Chuck Yeager for AC Delco.
In a high-performance fighter, we go from the griddle to more than 20 degrees below in just seconds. Well, here's an all-weather fighter for your car. The new Delco Freedom Dura Power battery. Hot or cold, it's got the starting power you can depend on. With a Freedom battery, you never need to add a drop of water.
Get a Delco Freedom battery starting at $39.95 for a 40 series. Call 800 AC Delco.
When I first bought this ranch, I could work it with one horse. The place has grown a little since then. And along the way, I learned something. If you sell a man good steers at a fair price, you're gonna do okay. The people that make Meister Brau beer must have gone to the same school I did. They got a beer here that tastes just as good as Budweiser. They sure do. It just doesn't cost as much. It sure don't. I got a hunch. Those boys are gonna do okay, too.
Introducing Meister Brau. Tastes as good as Budweiser at a better price.
Now Avis has the fastest way for you to return your car and get this record of your rental charges without waiting at the counter. I'll prove it. Our new Avis Rapid Return is as easy to use as your pocket calculator. You just punch in your car number, your mileage, your gas gauge reading. In less than a minute, out comes a record of your rental charges. Try our new Avis Rapid Return. It's another Avis first. It's fast, it's easy, and it's only at Avis.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Chevrolet. America is on the move, and Chevrolet is supplying the wheel. Chevrolet and you taking charge. And by AC Delco, General Motors Corporation. AC Delco is the way to go.
Jim Kelly and John Dockery, welcome back to Pittsburgh's Three Rivers Stadium. We've had a 7-all first half, and we've got 30 minutes in regulation between the AFC and the NFC Central Division leaders. I guess the interesting statistic there is the fact that each team has had one turnover, but as Bud Grant pointed out to us at the hotel late last night, Minnesota, in order to win this football game, would have to capitalize on Pittsburgh mistakes, and they failed to do it right at the end of the first half.
They certainly did. Frank Pollard coughed up the ball, and they weren't able to get it in the end zone. Mel Blount made a great play for the interception to actually shut off not only a touchdown, but also the field goal. That would have given Minnesota some momentum going into the locker room. They didn't get it, but they get the ball back right now, Jim. So an important first series in the second half for the Minnesota Vikings.
Vikings, as you saw, also outgained the Steelers, 176 yards to 101 yards. Outpassed them by a huge disparity, 107-18. Gary Anderson will tee it from the 35. Jarvis Redwine to the top of the screen. Leo Lewis to the bottom for the Minnesota Vikings. 3 yards deep in the end zone. Jarvis Redwine will bring it out. Hammered down at the 23-yard line. Craig Bingham, in his second year out of Syracuse, in there on the tackle.
And it's amazing how well that Steve Dills is in the first half was 8 completions in 14 attempts for over 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But now he's doing it without his big guns. Darren Nelson, we mentioned earlier, not playing. Ted Brown out with an injury. Joe Sensor not part of the offense. Sammy White very quiet. Of course, Ahmad Rashad is gone.
Can you imagine what shape the Vikings would be in if they were healthy? From the 23, motioned by the veteran Dave Casper. Inside handoff again to Tony Galbraith. He has been the workhorse on the ground for the Minnesota Vikings in the grasp of Mike Merriweather. Galbraith in the first half, 16 carries, 68 yards, averaging about 4.4 yards per carry.
Galbraith has done it all. He's also caught 3 passes for 16 yards. So there you see it, 17 now for 75 yards. Galbraith has picked up the slack. But I must say the Pittsburgh Steelers are flat, Jim. They're not playing with the intensity that they've played with in previous weeks.
2nd and 5 for Steve Dills. Lewis wide left, McCullum wide right. Dills sets it up well. Casper. Oh, what a play by Robin Cole.
Robin Cole fought off that block so well. Linebacker's supposed to do that. He fought off the block here. Take a look at it again. Robin Cole sees Casper, stays with him, fights off the block here, and makes the play on Casper, who's not the niftiest guy in the world, but good play by Robin Cole.
Robin Cole, the only player from the University of New Mexico to ever play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. #1 draft pick back in '71. 3rd and 8 passing situation. They stay on the ground. Galbraith sandwiched down at the 26. You get the feeling that Bud Grant is getting very conservative on 3rd down calls. He did it the entire first half.
Yes, he is getting conservative, but that's one of the things that's being done more and more in the NFL. You run against defenses that are set to protect against the pass, and you pass against run defenses. So it's not all that odd anymore.
Of course, they're missing Darren Nelson, the 2nd-year scat back out of Stanford. One of the Steelers, I guess it was Mel Blount, says he's so quick, even the camera's missing.
278 total yards offense last week against the Green Bay Packers. Boy, could they use him today.
He must be referring to the other guy's cameras. Our cameras don't miss him. On 4th and 7, Skansky back deep, fields over his shoulder. That's a dangerous way to field a punt. Gets a couple of blocks and finally is chopped down at the 29. Robin Sendline, 3rd year out of Texas, the man that made the hit and the tackle secure. So it's Cliff Stout and the Pittsburgh Steelers from their own 29-yard line. 1st and 10. And again, a 7-7 standoff between the leader in the NFC Central, the Minnesota Vikings, tied for that top spot with the Green Bay Packers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers with a 3-game lead over the Cleveland Browns. But the Browns were up big at Foxborough against the New England Patriots. Garrity wide to the right side, Sweeney wide left. Backs are Pollard and Franco Harris. Pollard fumbled last time. Gets a block from Franco. Penalty flag comes down again. Steelers hurt themselves with back-to-back holding calls in the first half. Had it down at the Vikings 30-yard line. Tommy Hannon made the tackle on number 30, Frank Pollard.
And it certainly looked like number 32, Franco Harris, doing what he likes to do least as a running back block. He was blocking on number 47, Joey Browner. I think that's where the penalty might have been.
You know, you talk about Tommy Hannon in his 7th year out of Michigan State who made the tackle. He said coming into the game, Pittsburgh was due for a downer and we had better be due for an upper.
Holding, number 32, 10 yards, still 1st down.
Franco Harris holding on the lead block.
1st and 20 for the Pittsburgh Steelers now. Sweeney top of your screen, Garrity to the bottom. Stout airs it out and throws it closer to Chuck Noll than Greg Garrity. Incomplete at the 40-yard line. Matt Blair putting all kinds of pressure on Cliff Stout.
And Stout didn't have much of a first half. He was 5 completions and 9 attempts for only 36 yards. Second half, there you see it right there, 5 of 10 for 36 now. He has 1 touchdown, though, to Benny Cunningham. And that's all the Pittsburgh Steelers have. Score tied 7-7 here. Chuck Noll wondering how to get his offense untracked.
I believe you're going to hear a chorus of boos if the Steelers don't get a first down here because their offense has been sputtering at best. Chuck Noll and what he's done here in the Pittsburgh Steelers since inheriting a 1-13 team. Blitz is on by the Vikings. Incomplete to Franco at the 32. And he had lots of artificial surface to ramble over it. He pulled that one down. Tommy Hannon in pursuit, but Franco was open and Cliff Stout simply misfired.
What did Chuck Noll say about concentration, Jim? He says it's a simple word, but it speaks volumes. That time Franco Harris had a chance to make that catch. Stout did well to get the ball off. It was there. He just didn't hold on to it.
Now, talking about the artificial surface here at Three Rivers, Franco Harris told us that it might prolong his career by as much as 2 years.
It used to be like concrete. They changed it this year. It's a lot softer, a lot easier on the legs.
3rd and 20 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stout over the middle, looks for Sweeney, incomplete at the 45, no flag. Sweeney, had he not tripped over the heels of one of the defenders, and I believe it was number 45, Tommy Hannon. Let's take another look and see who he tripped over.
Now, Stout does not have a Terry Bradshaw arm. This ball is thrown fairly well. The receiver hadn't tripped. Actually, it's tipped by a defensive back. The receiver tripped. Referee called no penalty.
It's been a busy afternoon for that man. Rufus Best back deep. He hasn't been busy. He's been letting them bounce, and they've been bouncing Pittsburgh's way. High spiraling kick, backing Bess up to the 29. Needs a block to the 40, his best return of the afternoon. Tackled by Craig Bingham again, who's been excellent on the specialty teams, and Bud Grant's Vikings now start in good field position. They start 1st and 10 from their own 41. We are still square at 7.
Move into more celebrity excitement.
Eurosport.
The new front drive Celebrity Eurosport. Special F41 sports suspension straightens out curves in a car that looks as special as it feels.
Eurosport.
Move into more celebrity. Eurosport. A touch of Europe at a Chevrolet price.
Chevrolet.
And you.
Taking charge.
A colorful breakthrough. Canon's 270F. It lets you make up to 27 copies a minute, reduces, enlarges, can even feed and collate automatically. But the 270F does more. It lets you communicate in color at a price that keeps you in the black. The Canon NP270F. For information, call toll-free.
Tuesday, Ben is caught between an innocent man accused of murder.
Tell me where you were, exactly.
And a family bent on revenge.
Jeff, get in
The
here!
Mississippi.
Time remaining in the 3rd quarter, and the Steeler fans trying to exhort their defense. Their offense has been unresponsive. Motion by Brewer, the tight end. Play action by Dills. Over the middle, Casper's got it. 1st down at the 25 of Pittsburgh.
Somebody must have been listening to Dave Casper when he said, you know what? They haven't been using me very much. I don't understand it. I've always caught the ball throughout my career. That time, Dills finds him over the middle for a big 1st down.
Casper came into the game with only 9 receptions for 121 yards. 10th year out of Notre Dame. Traded by the Oilers to Minnesota this year, along with Archie Manning. Slot formation left side from the 25 of Pittsburgh. Dills digs in. Wide open is Galbraith inside the 20. Knifes his way down to about the 18 in the grasp of Lauren Tays. And about 3 yards shy of 1st down yardage again. And you saw Dills. He wanted to go to the corner. Pittsburgh secondary had the men covered, and he just unloaded to the safety valve.
That's a trademark of the Minnesota offense. It's been for years. Some people think that it was Walsh who created that short passing game, that controlled passing game. But it's really Bud Grant years ago with Chuck Foreman, with the Ed Marinaros, with the Ted Browns.
And with a guy named Tarkenton.
Yes.
2nd and 2. Very close to 1st down yardage, and I think by the time Galbraith extended himself, he picked it up. You know, you can sense the Vikings taking control of this football game. They sense that the Pittsburgh offense is very flat, and you've got to like the way Dills comes out now along with Grant in the play calling and attacks the Pittsburgh secondary.
That's the only way to do it. If you go into your shell and be conservative, especially when you're on a 3-game losing streak, someone must take the game into control of their hands. Steve Dills is doing that right now.
Dills 11 out of 17, 157 yards and 1 touchdown. Handoff inside to Ricky Young. He slithers down to about the 11.5. Lorne Taves on the tackle again. His 11th year out of California. Had 51 tackles coming into this game.
You know, Jim, you talk about taking a game in your hands. Tommy Kramer, the fiery quarterback who was out with a knee injury, was so good at that. He could pick up on a team up on the strength of his personality. Dills is trying to be a little more like that. He's more of the scholarly, the intellectual type, the quiet quarterback.
Leo Lewis wide left. Sam McCullum top of your screen on 2nd and 6 for the Vikings. Almost a missed snap. Dills releases underneath, incomplete, and here comes a penalty flag. It'll be defensive pass interference against Lorne Taves, number 51. He was draped all over the back of number 34, Ricky Young, who tried to escape the backfield. Big break for the Vikings now. They'll have it 1st and goal, and the Steeler defense has got their work cut out for them.
And Ricky Young is such a great receiver out of the backfield. Lorne Taves obviously faked out, had to commit a penalty. Let's listen to it.
Holding, number 51, 5 yards, 1st down.
Now Ricky Young, number 34, watch him here to the left of your screen, coming out of the backfield. Lorne Taves is running over to meet him, to cover him. But right there, he's holding Young, who is by him, and there's the penalty.
You know, of the top 10 active wide receivers in the NFC, that the Vikings have 3 in the top 5, Ricky Young, Dave Casper, and Sammy White. The number 1 receiver is Harold Carmichael. He's not active anymore. Marion Campbell benched him this week. Brewer motion top of the screen. Play action by Dills. Out of the pocket. Touchdown. Tony Galbraith. You talk about an improvised play. Dills was running for his life. He wanted to go to Brewer, the tight end, but he was covered.
And not a great scrambler. Steve Dills, this is not a design play. Take a look at it again. Here he fakes, sets up, he wants to half roll, he's scrambling, he's feeling the pressure, fakes, looks like he's going to run, pulls it down, touchdown, Minnesota Vikings, Tony Galbraith.
Vikings lead for the first time in this football game. They lead for the first time in 2 weeks. They never got ahead of Green Bay. They closed to within a point. Benny Ricardo, and we've got a 7-point Minnesota advantage. For Steve Dills, his 10th touchdown toss of the season, his 2nd of the afternoon. The difference is a touchdown. The Vikings lead Pittsburgh by 7.
Chevy Top is taking charge. Compare S10 Maxi Cab to Datsun King Cab, and you'll see Chevy S10 has
Maxi room,
50% more rear load space,
Maxi payload,
more payload than King Cab,
Maxi power,
optional V6 muscle the imports don't have,
Maxi towing,
3,000 pounds more than the imports. Maximize your truck value. Chevy S10 Maxi Cab. Chevy Top is taking charge.
Our first company picnic wasn't much. 2 bags of chips and a 6-pack. But things changed, because we give our customers a good job for a good price. Call it good business, like this Meisterbräu. Sure, I can pick any beer now, but Meisterbräu tastes every bit as good as Budweiser, and it doesn't cost as much, so there's no contest. Hey, any of you overpaid, underworked people want a beer?
Introducing Meisterbräu. Tastes as good as Budweiser at a better price.